what I've learned since talking with people, and also because of my own experience and what I know of psychology, is that it seems like how society in general is built is one contributor to mental health, like to depression and to more anxiety. So depression because people feel more disconnected, they feel more alone and caught, like they're living in prisons, not only in themselves, because that's also a factor, that you live in a prison in yourself, but also that the way you live, like with all these demands of what hours you should work and how you should work, and then you should look in a certain way, and you always get the message that you're not enough, but if you buy this product you are enough, and also your kids should have this kind of life with these activities, and also the fact that we are away from our kids in the majority hour of the day, and that how that is normalized, so that maybe the playful and creative mind gets lessened and lessened when kids start school, because then it's not so constricted, and where kids learn to follow and obey certain rules and to do as everyone else, and so that and also that the parents, they don't get to spend that much time with the kids because they're in school, and then they should drive the kids to all these activities, and it's even though it can be good activities and it's fun, it's not that's the problem. Of course, soccer and everything is fun. It's just the context of it. There is so little time. So yeah, all that is I think is making, it seems like it's making people less connected, because they never have time to really tune into how they feel and what they want. And then also anxiety, because they are loss of direction. They don't follow their own direction of how they want to live their life, because they don't know. You just do as you're supposed to. So you're supposed to live, and so there is a lot of also FOMO, like if you don't do, at least in Sweden, like if you're different, then you're very different, or then it's like so split, like it's not so much room for alternative livings or individual adapted living. It's either you're the weirdo in the woods, or you live, like everyone else, well, generally speaking. In order for someone to heal, you first have to connect with what's there, to know, to understand yourself and to get to know yourself. And I think healing then is about to build the right setting and context for someone to be able to do that. And that's also what I've heard, again, people coming here, that it's easier for them to talk here. So they hear themselves say things that maybe they wouldn't have said sitting at a cafe or in an office, or a psychiatry office, I don't know, in the city. So yeah, I think that's the first step to move forward.